Whatever happened to a paperless society? What about saving all those trees? Doesn't seem possible, does it, when you look at this A-plus course? We have a nugget on printer technologies. We have a nugget on printer troubleshooting. Here we're going to take a look at printer preventative maintenance. This is probably one of my favorite nuggets in the course because I, like everybody else, when I go to print something, I desperately want that thing to print. I want to be proactive when it comes to maintenance so that I don't have issues getting some kind of document that I desperately need. Let's take a look at printer maintenance across laser, thermal, impact, and inkjet, and we'll start by just giving you some general great ideas when it comes to printer maintenance. Now, I know you and I don't like to read manuals. We're way too smart for that, but this may be a really good time to start with the vendor's documentation because probably what's going to be outlined for you is a maintenance schedule and even a maintenance kit that you can purchase and use according to their schedule. So what I like to do is create a log, literally logging when I have accomplished their recommended schedule of tasks. Some printers will literally have you go into the software associated with that printer and indicate that you've done the maintenance, so it will help you track just how frequently you've performed the required maintenance. And another good general thing we want to do is we want to watch where the printer lives. Yeah, watch where it's placed. That's definitely going to have an impact on how often we have to clean and maintain that device. I remember one of the most unbelievable examples of this was here in Florida. I was consulting for a livestock company. So they would raise cattle and then they would sell these cattle. And they had a setup, a computer setup in the barn. Yep, in one of the barns. And I walked in there and there was this terminal, there was this printer, and I really should have taken a picture because it was just covered in gook and grime, and there had been absolutely nothing done to protect any of this equipment. And they said, yeah, we're fine with this setup. And so obviously I pointed out to them, yeah, you're having trouble printing out here because you're going to have to do an incredible amount of routine maintenance to keep this printer functional. Another temptation for us, and I've fallen victim to this many times throughout my life, is buying really inexpensive third-party stuff for your printer because you're just amazed, right? The printer is so relatively inexpensive, and then you're blown away by the money that you're spending over the lifetime of that device for ink and cleaning supplies and all that good stuff. Well, just be careful because a lot of times we are going to shorten the life of the device. We're going to make the device work far less efficient. We're going to actually increase the number of problems we have when we try and save money with this third-party stuff. And finally, another general recommendation is to power cycle the thing periodically. I just bought a very inexpensive little workhorse scanner and inkjet printer for the office. Really super happy with this purchase. And one of the things that this printer does that's absolutely ideal for me is that it powers itself down. It recognizes, wow, I haven't been used in some period of time. It'll completely power itself down. And this is great because I'm getting a consistent recycle of the power on that device, which with a lot of devices is a key to really successful printing. So now let's get specific to the various printers that we're responsible for as an A-plus technician. And the first one is that laser printer, by far the most complex. And that's why we have the longest list here of things that we want to be aware of. First of all, paper jams are a reality with any printer type that we're using, aren't they? And you want to make sure that you correctly clear the jam, and also from a maintenance perspective, really scrutinize why it might be happening. If it's happening habitually, then you have some kind of alignment issue with the feeder. One of the things that comes up is many times the type of paper that's being used is inappropriate for that particular device. So please investigate this if it's taking up a lot of your life. Like always, and like we talked about extensively in printer troubleshooting, look at what the printer is telling you. There will be LEDs, there will be error codes that are printed for you, there'll be error codes that are on various displays. You might have a printer that's emailing you notifications. Listen to what the printer is trying to tell you. Something else that we are going to be responsible for, most likely, unless we've contracted all maintenance to some third party, will be responsible for cleaning. And you want to make sure you're using the tools they tell you to for cleaning, and most importantly, the liquids that they're telling you for cleaning. We're not going to dump water in the laser printer and, swab a washcloth around. They're going to tell us exactly how we want to clean. Something else we need to watch out for is paper reuse. Yeah, a lot of times there'll be all these blank sheets that have run through the printer, and you're like, okay, nothing printed on them, so they're completely safe to use again. But remember, if we reuse paper, that paper has already been charged and fused, so there may not look like anything's on it, but it's not truly fresh paper. We are probably going to be applying the maintenance kit per the manufacturer's schedule and per their instructions, or we may have that done for us. We're probably going to be following the instructions carefully to replace the toner. We may be calibrating the device per their instructions, but these may be things that someone does for you. So just keep that in mind, that a lot of this might be something that you're just looking over someone else's shoulder as they do. And don't stand too close to them. That can really annoy the printer technician. Now, calibration is certainly, it can get a bit complex in the laser world compared to calibrating other types of printers, but it's usually something like during the installation of the software, you're asked if you want to do it. The printer is going to print a set of numbered lines. Each of these lines indicates alignment, and then you're asked which looks best, and then you set that particular number in the printer and click OK, and then you exit the alignment routine. This does vary, though, printer to printer. So again, if you're doing this yourself, you're going to make sure that you're carefully following the manufacturer's process. And before I leave this laser section, I want to just remind you of something that I probably should have mentioned in the general section that's a really good idea, and that is spares. So we want to make sure that we have plenty of additional resources on hand for the printer. So cleaning supplies, make sure we have plenty of spares ready to go. Toner, anything that's consumable with the device that we have to replace, let's make sure that we have spares on hand. My wife's inkjet printer is network connected, and it literally is telling HP when it is low on ink, and the ink arrives in the mail. So never again will I have to watch her panic that she can't print because there is not a backup cartridge ready to go. So at one end of the spectrum, you have the laser printer that can be so complex to maintain that you literally don't do it. You have a service contract with someone else that does it. But then on the complete opposite end of that spectrum, we have the thermal printer, where you're probably going to be solely in charge of this particular device. You'll be in charge of replacing the paper. You'll be in charge of making sure that no one's damaged the feed assembly in the unit. You'll be in charge of cleaning the heating element. You'll be in charge of removing debris that inevitably make their way into the casing of this little device. So it's probably going to be all up to you, but as I've alluded to, there's really not much that you're going to be doing. It's really replacing paper, training others how to replace their own paper, cleaning, and more cleaning of this device. Another device, by the way, that tends to end up in some pretty harsh environments. All kinds of liquid being, thrown around, all kinds of different environmental factors that could harm the device. Now, of course, our impact printers are fading away. That's right, tough to find, and that's probably good news for us because we're busy enough with the other print technologies that are popular today. But remember, on these impact printers, we would do ribbon replacements, print head replacements. Certainly, we have to replace the paper, train others to replace the paper correctly. And then there's plenty of cleaning that we might have to do. These devices not going to be an emphasis in the A+ environment, of course, because they are fading away, but we do need to include this information because it is in the exam objectives. Now, when it comes to your inkjets, there is going to be variety here in how much maintenance you have to do per the manufacturer, per the exact one that you have to that you purchased. Now, keep in mind, some commonalities would be like dealing with a paper jam, which is going to be much simpler typically than dealing with a laser paper jam. We may have to calibrate, clean heads, and something that we're certainly going to have to do is replace the cartridges. How you replace your cartridges, there's going to be tremendous variation from device to device. So it's going to be very important for you in the documentation that came with your printer to master that process. Typically about 3 times replacing the cartridges and you'll have it memorized. But during those initial times of cartridge replacement, you'll want to be very careful to follow the instructions because it could be unlike any other inkjet that you've ever dealt with before. Now, many times today, when you install a printer, the drivers will be already in place in the operating system. So you plug that thing in, let's say it's a USB inkjet, you plug that thing in and it's recognized and it's ready to go. It's ready to print. But I would go up and download the utilities that come with that printer because they can really, really make your life easy. Look at this. Thanks to the HP utility here for my DeskJet at the office, I can quickly see, okay, how am I doing on ink, for example? And we can see, time for me to think about color. I've got plenty of spares here in the office, so that's not going to stress me out. Yep, I follow my own advice. Cartridge protection is here. That's pretty interesting. This will make sure that no one else can use my print cartridge. Pretty cool. I don't mess with that, obviously. Under all settings, we have supply info. So if I have to run out and get those supplies, I've got the exact product numbers that I need to purchase. If we come back in here, we'll see device information. And now we get into calibration with alignment that we can run. Cleaning of the print heads, paper feed cleaning. If we're getting smears on the back of a page, a process to clean that up. And always a great idea, the ability to print a test page on that printer. And I like to do this periodically because I don't use my office printer nearly enough. It doesn't nearly get the use that the printer in my home gets, where all of us are tending to print stuff. When it's just me at my small office, home office, this thing needs to print every once in a while. Reminds me when I was riding motorcycles, I had this motorcycle that I would never ride. And sure enough, it was the one I always had problems with because its problem was it was never being used. It was designed to be run, and this motorcycle would just sit there and not run. Not good for that gadget. So here we have the HP utility for my system, and we can see the important maintenance procedures that we can do to keep it running perfectly. And by the way, I wanted to show you the clean print head process on this particular machine. Notice it tells us, look, if your output is getting crappy, that's the technical term. If your output's looking crappy, it may be time to clean this device. So you click clean and it walks you through the process. And then there's even a level 2 cleaning that you can do to further the maintenance of this device. Now you might wonder, why wouldn't you just do this every week? I mean, let's just go in there and let's obsessively clean this device. Well, the reason why you wouldn't do that in an inkjet environment is you would very quickly run out of ink. This does deplete ink levels if you were to do too much of it. So we want to be proactive. We want to be really on top of maintenance when it comes to our printers. Why? Because it's going to seem like it's going to consume a lot of our time, but trust me, if we're proactive in this maintenance, it is going to save us tons of time and aggravation. We won't be running around troubleshooting printers all the time. Instead, on our own schedule, we'll be maintaining them. I sure hope you found this nugget informative, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.